Hello guys, welcome back to the final round of the Gashimov Memorial. If you have watched my previous video, you would know that Carlsen has already won this tournament, and the last round is just a matter of formality for the world champion. In this game, he has the white pieces against Alexander Grischuk. I'm going to go through the opening stages of this game quickly, since it was a rather quiet opening. Carlsen opens with e4, Grischuk plays e5, knight f3, knight c6, bishop b5 from Carlsen, the Spanish game. So here Grischuk goes knight f6, the Berlin defense, d3 from Carlsen, bishop c5, c3, castles from both sides, d6. And here bishop a4. So bishop a4 is a rare line first played by Katerina Lagno against Pavel Ilyanov in 2008. Here Grischuk went knight e7, and Carlsen dropped his bishop back to c2. So this prepares to push d4, and Carlsen is not committing his knight just yet. It can go to c3 or d2. Knight g6 from Grischuk. d4 from Carlsen, bishop back to b6. a4, so threatening to trap bishop with a5, therefore c6 from Grischuk. And here Carlsen decides to exchange off some pieces. Bishop c5. So Grischuk lights his bishop on this diagonal. So b4 is tempting in this position, but it isn't that good because white should be focused on his development instead of pushing b4. After bishop e7, f3, bishop e6, bishop e3, black is ahead in development and he can strike with c5. So here Carlsen goes knight d2. Bishop e6 from Grischuk. So Grischuk has successfully navigated through the opening without much difficulties. This position is about equal. Rook e1 from Carlsen. And here b5. So Grischuk said after the game that this was a big mistake, but I think he was being a bit too harsh on himself. Carlsen played knight b3, and Grischuk reluctantly played bishop takes b3, giving up the bishop pair, as he couldn't see a better alternative. For example, if bishop e7, white goes a6. Fixing this pawn on a7 could be some ideas like playing bishop e3. You have to go f3 first, so that this doesn't hang a pawn. So ideas like bishop e3, knight a5 is also a possibility. So Grischuk didn't like this. He decided to give up the bishop pair. But I think that wasn't such a big deal, but knight g4 is a bit ambitious. I think this is the start of Grischuk's problems in this game. So initially I thought that Grischuk was planning something along the lines of rook b8 and pushing b4 to get some activity down the b file. I thought that was the purpose of pushing b5, but instead Grischuk goes knight g4. We have rook e2, so that defends f2. And now rook d6. This seems pretty awkward. Could be that Grischuk just wants to double rooks, and he wants to leave this d7 square vacant for the knight in the future. That's why he played rook d6. But a better move in this position was to go h6. This makes it difficult for Carlsen to develop the dark square bishop. And white can't go bishop d2 because that drops a pawn, knight takes f2. And if rook captures, rook takes d2 wins. So rook d6 is a bit clumsy, and Carlsen takes advantage of this with bishop g5, so he develops his bishop. He is getting ready to bring this inactive rook into the game, and this comes with a tempo because Carlsen is threatening to go bishop e7. So king to f8 from Grischuk, that defends the e7 square and also gets out of the pin, but somehow Carlsen manages to exploit this with rook f1. So white isn't really worried about moves like h6 or f6, because this bishop can always drop back to c1 without sealing off the rook, because the rook is now on f1. So the question now is, can Carlsen make the bishop pair count? Knight f6 from Grischuk. So here Grischuk controls the only open file in the game, but that doesn't mean much since White's bishops nicely control the entry points for the rooks. g3. So Carlsen makes room for the king to try and break this pin on the f-pawn. a6. So Grischuk in turn gives his bishop a flight square, which prevents it from being trapped in some cases, for example bishop c2 and b4. So now Carlsen goes, sorry about that, king g2, knight d7, Carlsen dropped the bishop back, bishop a7. Grischuk is hoping for some counterplay in this position with knight to c5, but Carlsen is now ready to strike f4, and this feels strong since the king is in line with the rook. And Black's bishop, although nicely placed on this g1 a7 diagonal, doesn't really accomplish much. f6 now from Grischuk. h4, so trying to probe more weaknesses on the king side. Rook to e8. So if Black were to play c5 with the intention of going c4 and closing this bishop's diagonal, this can be met with bishop d5. And this rook on d6 looks silly. Bishop b7 always has to be taken into consideration by Black, so c5 isn't a good move. Here rook e8 from Grischuk, trying to free up the knight by protecting e5. h5, so Carlsen obviously wants to soften up the king side. Grischuk tried to prevent this with h6, but perhaps a better defensive try was to play e takes f4, and after bishop takes f4, at least Black has found a decent square for his knight. And if g takes f4, knight c5, Black is still fighting on. But on h6, this weakens the g6 square. So will Magnus be able to take advantage of this? Magnus first drops his bishop back, maybe in anticipation of knight c5. So here the idea of playing e takes f4 is still on the tables for Grischuk. Knight c5, and after e5, knight d3. Black is still fighting on in this position. It's still a bit messy. But Grischuk played c5. If bishop d5, this doesn't quite work tactically because after e captures f4, Black is threatening to play rook takes d5 because the pawn is pinned. So Magnus goes bishop to e3. And Grischuk praised this move from Carlsen in the press conference after the game. This drops a pawn after e takes, g takes f4, rook takes e4. You could go bishop takes f4, but this allows the knight into e5. So this drops a pawn, but it creates a very tricky situation for Grischuk. After bishop b1, rook back to e7, rook f to e1. Grischuk now down to 6 minutes on the clock, Magnus on 27 minutes, and Grischuk blundered in this position. He goes f5, so Grischuk was worried about bishop g6 with mating threats around the king. But f5 is a mistake. Computer gives the best move, the best defense, as knight b8, but this is very difficult to find. And the idea is to go knight c6, where after the capture on e7, the knight would be covering the g6 square. But in the game we see the move f5, so Grischuk gives back the pawn in hopes of protecting the e8 square. But everything falls into place tactically for Magnus in this position. Magnus played king to f3, and the threat is now bishop takes c5. For example, if Black goes knight takes h5, bishop takes c5, rook takes e7, and this wins material. And if rook takes e2, bishop takes d6 comes with check, followed by taking on e2, and white is simply up a full rook. So here Grischuk played knight to d5, defending against the immediate threat of bishop takes c5. Unfortunately, this runs into rook to d2, pinning and winning rook d8 from Grischuk. So it would be a mistake to double on the pin piece because it would leave the bishop on e3 hanging. So here bishop e4 from Carlsen. Sorry about that. Rook e to d7, rook e to d1, knight f6. So Grischuk just about avoids losing a piece, but the queenside pawns will eventually drop. Rook takes d7 from Magnus. So if rook takes d7, rook captures, knight captures, bishop b7 wins. Black can of course try and defend this with knight to b8, but here white has this b4 idea taking advantage of the pin, and this king is coming into the position, could go to the king side or the queen side, depending on how black plays this. And this is definitely winning for Carlsen. So here Grischuk played knight takes d7. So one last trick to avoid, if you go bishop b7, this runs into knight e5 check. And black is still fighting on in this position. So here Carlsen plays rook to d6, a6 is about to fall, and Grischuk resigns. Magnus finishes the event with 7 out of 9, 2 points ahead the rest of the pack, and a performance rating of 2988. This is definitely one of the most dominating performances in recent times. Really incredible stuff from the world champion. If you enjoyed the content, don't forget to leave a like and subscribe to the channel. Thanks for watching and have a great day.